or religious sector, if you may want to use that word. I hate the word religion for some reason, because I see Christianity as a faith, not as a religion. When I contextualize and juxtapose it, and the rubric of the problem is just very bare. When you look at on the social media, look at it on the internet, you see very few Zimbabwean leaders who focus on a vision which God have given them. Somehow they focus on what fault this one has, that one has. Of course, who doesn't have a fault? That's a question. Who is that man who is infallible, who is complete? God have always used a fallible man to express his infallibility and power. That's what he has done for over the centuries. You look at Moses, he was not a complete man. He was a stammerer. Yet God called him and sent him to deliver the children of Israel from bondage. Hosea had a wife who was a prostitute. And Elisha missed it one day concerning the Shunammite woman. He missed it when the woman was coming. He didn't understand why she was coming. Jeremiah, when he was called, was a young man. Paul was one of the worst murderers, with a history of murdering people and causing division. Yet he became a mighty apostle, a theologian of repute and of note. And many could surpass his ability. Peter was a very weak and fearful man, doubting, fluctuating, unstable. Yet he became a mighty man of God that God used, and his shadow could even heal the sick. So where do you find a man who is infallible? When we carry the Adamic nature. Everyone who is being used by God have many faults. The Bible says, if you say you don't have sin, you make God a lie, and the truth is not in you. Paul makes a very damning indictment about himself in Romans 7, from verse 14 going downwards. He says, look, I know that this law is spiritual, and I am unspiritual, and I am a slave sold unto sin. How could a man of such magnitude and stature, a theologian of that level, describe himself that way? And he said, I know that there's nothing good in my sinful nature. For the good that I desire to do, I don't end up doing it. It is the wrong that I don't want to do that that keeps me a slave. But then he calls out and says, "Oh wretched man I am, who then can deliver me out of this body?" And he says, only Jesus Christ can save me. So the Zimbabwean leadership need to understand that the antidote of the mistakes of their fellow leaders is only Christ. And until they begin to concentrate on the positive and galvanize and unify their ideas together, then Zimbabwe will not be able to move forward. Zimbabwe will become a prisoner of this divisive culture that it nurtures and carries in. until Zimbabweans understand that mistakes in human life are common and is a commonplace thing, but we really need to do something by galvanizing, by connecting, by making a collective effort. I am because you are because of I am. No man is an island, we unify. So my challenge to the Zimbabwean church, first and foremost, I have always said that the Zimbabwean church is the moral voice of a nation. The pastors are the torch bearers of what they want to see happen in a country. If change has to happen, it has to happen at the very highest level. And the spiritual environment in a nation is the highest level to which we must appeal in order to deal with the so many challenges that the nation is happening. So the Zimbabwean church ought to be delivered of the demon of selfish ambition, self-exaltation, competition, jealousy, division, and we then must ask God to make us vessels of honor. Make us humble. The Bible says Moses was a man who was mighty in word and mighty in deed, yet he was the meekest man in his generation. How do you reconcile the two? Mighty in words, mighty in deed, and then very meek, very humble. I said humility is the genuine mark, is the mark of a genuine Christian. Without it, we cannot interact, we cannot coexist harmoniously and build up something together. So that's really the challenge Zimbabwe faces. That's the demon that has held the country and is so endemic, so systematic, and has been the eggs of this very, very treacherous snake were laid down by the agent of Satan, imperialism and colonialism, divided the nation. You take two people, they'll tell you, you are better, this one is like this, go to the other one, whisper a different message to the other one, whisper a different message, and make them collide and fight and never trust each other, never able to sit on the same table and develop something meaningful, always suspicious. What a wretched nation. We can't talk of a meaningful future in the context of that. Look at what's happening in West Africa. Some nations are pro-America, some nations are pro-African, divided. And that is the scheme of Satan. He knows it. In the Garden of Eden, he sows seeds of division between Adam and Eve. That's what he does. And over the years, that has been his trajectory, his method of operation. And humanity have not understood it. Worse off, the Zimbabwean situation is very telling.
Thank you so much, man of God. Those are viewers, as you are watching, remember this is an interactive broadcast. As you continue to watch, as the servant of God keeps to share what God has put on his heart for the nation of Zimbabwe. As he's saying, the solution lies in unity. Zimbabwe must unite. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back, and the servant of God will continue to speak to the nation of Zimbabwe.
Studying the subject of land reform, it is perhaps the first book that attempts to make a serious analysis of landlessness as a human rights issue. Get your copy today on Amazon.ca. Explore Law, Land Reform and Social Justice, A Case for Zimbabwe, by Tom Tirivangani. The land question in Zimbabwe has generated a lot of heated controversy all over the world. It is also useful to lecturers and students involved in studying the subject of land reform. It is perhaps the first book that attempts to make a serious analysis of landlessness as a human rights issue. Get your copy today on Amazon.ca.
So, that's when we ended, that's what I was just talking about, and really focusing on recalibrating the spiritual environment in the nation, finding each other, and trying to find a way forward.
Yes. Thank you so much, servant of God and viewers. Once again, thank you for joining Good Morning Zimbabwe. You're hearing the cry of the servant week after week. He's given this prophetic wisdom to the nation of Zimbabwe, and more importantly, to the churches in Zimbabwe, being that moral voice. So, servant of God, like, I understand that you're speaking that they need to come together, and I know God has been emphasizing mostly on the church leadership of not being divided and coming together, and then the church is able to make the change in the nation of Zimbabwe. So, with that being said, as servant of God, so how are you seeing Zimbabwe? Because it seems like as you are talking, many people are watching, and the citizens of Zimbabwe are also watching. So I wanted to know, sir, what do you have to say to them? Even though they're hearing you, maybe they have reached out to their pastor, they have said, are we hearing this message? But somehow they feel the people of Zimbabwe, they are looking to hear what prophetic insight can be given to them.
So the Zimbabwean, we will create a platform, a platform to be able to interact.
Yes.
We need a platform in which we are able to interact as Zimbabwean church leaders. I don't like the term Zimbabwean religious leaders. I don't really like that term. I'm very averse to describing the church as religious. So very, very a pragmatic term for me. But we need to create a platform in which we must create dialogue. Dialogue between Zimbabwean pastors. There is a lot of, in one of my lectures in the Bible school, I talk about the dangers of assumptions. Assumptions are very destructive and very dangerous. Instead of interacting and getting to know each other by fellowship, by asking each other questions, we tend to assume that so and so is like so, so and so is like so, so and so is like so. And some of the level of criticism, especially with the church, when you see in social media, it's carried out by people who don't have education, who are not theological sound, who are just kind of internet purveyors of all this sometimes theological nonsense that you see on the internet, but really it's not grounded in the rubric of sound theological doctrine or evidence, rather. The most of the stories that you see being speculated, being circulated, is mere conjecture. It's not evidence. We are looking for evidence-based leadership. Evidence-based leadership, it can only come out of that serious personal interaction. Get to know me. Don't assume things about me. Don't assume things about my ministry. Ask penitent and very important question. Allow your brother or your sister to answer you. Answer those questions without preconceived ideas. Be willing to be persuaded about the sensibilities and sincerities of somebody else. We need a genuine dialogue. then we can begin to understand that John the Baptist is not Jesus. Jesus is not John the Baptist. You see? Jesus asked the disciples, what do the people say that I am? We hear a whole lot of stuff. Some say you are John, some say you are Elijah, some say you are like this. And they say, but you, Peter, what do you say that I am? You. He said you are the Christ. But 99% of the stories about Jesus were false. And it's evidence that's not corroborated. It's evidence. It's evidence that cannot convince. That's not sound. So we need to create a platform in which Zimbabwean pastors who care about the future of their country, the future of the congregation that they lead that are in Zimbabwe, ought to kind of sit down first and we dialogue. And we are going to create a platform in which we dialogue.
Wonderful, man of God. Thank you so much for that. As we are coming to an end to this podcast today, remember this is Good Morning Zimbabwe. So continue to share this video with your families and friends. As the word go, you let people know what has been talked, and then they can interact with this message. So we're just going to allow the servant of God to give his final word today to the viewers. And like we said, share this. Share this with your families and friends. Man of God, over to you.
Yes, in the midst of the challenges that the nation is going through, it's going through a transitory period, a period of transition. There is hope. The Bible says Abraham believed God, and he went to a place that God would make him a father of many nations without fully knowing where he was going. And the Bible says Abraham hoped against hope. And so Zimbabwe, your future is certain. That I am convinced. Your future is certain. The outcome of future is certain. Zimbabwe needs reorganization, reorientation, and resetting in order to make sure that it doesn't waste the opportunity which God has presented before it. So I encourage you, Zimbabwe, be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. The dry bones in your nation shall live again. Don't lose hope like Mary and Martha. When Lazarus was in the grave for 4 days and looked as if the end had come, the end had not come for the nation. The future is very open, but I can tell you the end for your government has already come. I don't know how many I can say it. I don't know. People must prepare for what's going to come. They must prepare for what's going to come. This I do not mean. I'm not diplomatic about this. I know those leaders who are here today, surely they will account for what's happening. Surely they must prepare to account, because this period is not a period of impunity. It's a period of accountability, and that accountability, both divine, politically, is coming. And so be of good cheer, Zimbabwe. And once again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I really love the nation of Zimbabwe. I love Zimbabwe, and I have a passion to see God fulfill his purpose in that country. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, our viewers, and thank you so much for tuning in to Good Morning Zimbabwe. My name is China Strong Gwata, and that has been a sit-down with the Prophet of God, Prophet Tom Tirivangani. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Sunday at 4 p.m. So you don't want to miss it. So stay tuned to our Facebook and our YouTube. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Thank you.